everybody, and today I'm finally here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, I've not reviewed Guardians 1 or 2. This probably feels weird that I'm reviewing them out of order. Well, because this is one of the movies I saw in 2023, it's time we talk about it. So, this is number 2 for me. And I gotta say, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I love the first one, really catchy music. I love how they explored completely unknown characters and now they're household names. The second one, a lot of people don't like the second one for some reason. Or maybe they do, maybe they don't. I don't know, but I love the second one too. It was also just as fun as the first one and just as memorable. And this one, oh man, it is so good. It's basically a love letter to what all they've been through throughout the MCU. And yeah, they have appeared in the Avengers, Infinity War, Endgame, and they made a cameo in Thor: Love and Thunder. But this feels like the grand finale to Guardians of the Galaxy. So the plot is mainly revolving around Rocket Raccoon, as he is now hunted by Adam Warlock, because apparently they want him for something, but we don't know yet. And the movie opens with Star-Lord depressed on Nowhere, I'm pretty sure they're on. It's like a revamped version of it, and it was all shown in the Christmas special that they did. By the way, that Christmas special is awesome. I think I reviewed on my channel a bit ago, but yeah, the Guardians are kind of living their own lives now. They're kind of just settling down on Nowhere, not doing too much, keeping a low profile, and it's because Star-Lord is depressed, drunk, when Rocket shows up, and he says go away, Rat, and then Rocket's I told you for 1,000,000 times, I'm not a raccoon. Yeah, it's a running joke in these movies that ever since Peter met Rocket, he has always said, "You're a raccoon," and Rocket's "What's a raccoon?" But it all changes when Adam Warlock shows up out of nowhere, and he randomly grabs Rocket, and damn, Rocket goes through quite the damage in it, and it will become relevant later in the plot. But because Rocket's been damaged, and it leads to a fight between Drax, Nebula, and the way they get Adam Warlock away is Nebula uses her new power to her new arm, and she's able to turn it into a sharp, and she stabs Adam Warlock, and I thought he was gonna die when I saw this, because by the way, I saw this in theaters with my friend, and we did a little small vlog on it. Go check that out. But yeah, Adam is stabbed, and it turns out Rocket has a sort of kill switch, and it's because of his unknown origin, which they finally explore in this movie, and it's easily the highlight of this movie. The flashbacks of Rocket as a baby it's so sad, because Rocket had to go through abuse, capture by the main villain of this movie, and that is revealed to be the High Evolutionary. So we don't know his real name. He's played by I don't know how to say the actor's name. I know it, but I don't know how to say it. But he is a brilliant villain. But I might go into him later, but I will. But the flashbacks of Rocket, we see him as a baby raccoon, and he looks adorable, of course. But we do learn of who he grew up with, and apparently he didn't even have a name. And Rocket's backstory was always teased in the Guardians movies, when we first meet him. We see these metal things on his back, and we were wondering what that was, and now we finally get that answer, because he was experimented on, and he apparently did meet other friends while he was captured. he he befriended other animals, like a walrus. I think he has a name, and we meet his, I guess, girlfriend, Lila. So I already knew who Lila was when I saw the trailer for this movie, because I played the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale series, and in that game, with the rocket-centered episode, we do meet what led the Rocket, like, having a heart towards Lila. But in this movie, it's a lot darker. But Star-Lord gathers the team to go meet up with Gamora, who has teamed up with the Ravengers. So if you don't know Avengers Endgame, if you don't, then I think you're kind of living under a rock. But Gamora is not part of the team anymore, because in Avengers Endgame, because the Avengers went back in time, Thanos from 2014 followed them, and it led to the big finale in that movie. And surprisingly, I've never reviewed Avengers Endgame. I will review it someday. But Gamora in that survived on the battlefield, and because she didn't get to travel back in time, she has now rejoined the Ravagers. And since she didn't want to join the team, it leaves tension between Star-Lord, because Star-Lord loved Gamora, and the two loved each other. But because Gamora died in Infinity War, and I guess Gamora is brought back through time travel, Gamora's kind of just like, I don't know who this other Gamora is, but I'm not her. But they team up, and they have to go to this one planet, and they're given the information by Sylvester Stallone, he was awesome to see in this movie, even though he doesn't have a big role. But they give him the intel to go to this one planet of the secret society, I'm pretty sure it is. Like, it has like a bunch of, it's a cool looking planet. But they go to the planet. It's like on this moon rock planet, and they're playing their music, and they put on like these space suits, and they go to and they're dressed like Among Us characters, and some people were thinking that was Among Us, but James Gunn has said it's not meant to be Among Us, I'm pretty sure. But the Guardians do like dig like some hole, and they have like these button things, and they're messing around with it. I think mainly Mantis is messing with it, and Drax, and it's meant to be funny. But they drill a hole in this planet, and then they go into a secret facility where they take their spacesuits off, and now they're in some sort of, I guess, information database. And we see a bunch of cool people. We see like these cop characters who have like shells as like their uniforms, and the Guardians are trying to play it cool. But it all gets interrupted because Gamora is trying to do it her own way, and she threatens this one lady once they do find the intel, because it turns out, I don't know why I didn't mention this, but Rocket, the reason why he is in danger is because his kill switch, he apparently, when he was experimented on, he had this kill switch, and it's been turned on, and the only way to save Rocket is to find some weapon, this thing to help restore him. So they do find the information, the intel, to fix Rocket. And it does lead to a big fight. And I do like the one scene where the Guardians are in the elevator and Star-Lord admits to his wrongs, because a lot of people were hating on Star-Lord because he technically caused the universe to snap. And some people say it's Captain America's fault, but they're saying it's Star-Lord's fault because he overreacted once he learned of Gamora's death. And Star-Lord basically admits to it, that it was his fault, but he's saying it's all good because they all got restored. But it's all interrupted when they get into a huge fight with the guards there, and it's like a big brawl, and I think Drax gets shot, and I knew Drax wasn't gonna die, and Drax is a strong character, but Yeah, he gets shot, and yeah, he survives, but like barely. And it leads to like a big goose chase to escape because they have the intel to save Rocket now. And I think it all leads to them going to what it's revealed to be where the High Evolutionary, he apparently, it turns out that he has made his own society, his own Earth. But once this happens, we do get more flashbacks on Rocket. We do learn how he gets his name because while he was still in his little cage, they all his buddies, his animal friends were all trying to like come up with names, and they come up with a name for Rocket, and it's very cute. It's a very cute scene, and I think earlier in the flashbacks we do see Rocket like witness what the High Evolutionary is doing with animals. It turns out he's experimenting and causing them to combine together, and it's very sad to watch because I think if you're an animal lover I think you're going to be seeing a lot of upsetting scenes. But for me, yeah, they were upsetting, but I can handle it just fine. But yeah, I think the Guardians do go to this one planet. I think it's something to do with Earth, but like it's called the opposite of Earth. It's basically a planet where like all the I think like all the it's human instead of humans, it's animals that are society as like they're part of the human society, but like instead of humans, it's animals. I don't know if any of that made sense, but it turns out the Guardians do land on the planet, and I do like the scene where they try to play catch with Drax, and then Drax like throws the the basketball back at the kid when they meet this on the planet, and then like he cries, and then they think they're a threat at first, but the Star-Lord tries to de-escalate to say how they're good. But they meet up with this family. I don't know what animal they were, but it looked interesting. But apparently they don't speak English, and so they had to use their sign language, and they had to draw the High Evolutionary once they learned the intel about him at that one facility. And they do draw him, and it turns out he's at the tower, and we get this scene of this little girl on like a hamster wheel, but she's been on it for 2 hours straight, and the High Evolutionary is fascinated by it. And what makes him the most, I don't know who's the more deadular villain in the Guardians movies. I honestly think it is the High Evolutionary because he's willing to do the movie trying to make it seems like he thinks what he's doing is right, but what he's really doing is doing awful things to animals. And it led to Rocket down his path, I'm pretty sure. And we'll get into this flashback in a bit, but like, yeah, I think he's more interesting of a villain than say like Ronan. The only issue I have with Guardians 1 is I did not care for Ronan at all. Like, he really was just a pawn of Thanos, and then he gets killed by the Infinity Stones. He gets killed by the Power Stone. And then we meet Ego. Yeah, and he was a good villain. Apparently, he was trying to be a good dad. But it turns out he was a fake dad. And yeah, that's a different story. But like, with the High Evolutionary, yeah, he apparently wants to change society with his experiments. But he's going about it the wrong way as what he does to animals. But I think what happens is Star-Lord and I think Groot. Yeah, and by the way, Groot's an adult in this movie, and he's looking cool. Groot looks cool, and I think earlier in the movie when he was fighting Adam Warlock, he gets like his entire body shedded except his head. But yeah, he does regrow it back. But apparently Star-Lord tries to have a talk with the High Evolutionary about how to save Rocket. and I think they almost give him what they I think they do get what they want, but it turns out one of the High Evolutionary's like henchmen is the way to save Rocket because he has something in his head for it, but Star-Lord decides to betray this guy. But I kind of am skipping things a bit, but I did like the scene where like when Star-Lord and Nebula try to when they find out where his headquarters is, they try to go to the place, and I do like the scene where Star-Lord's in the car, he tries to drive it, and then like Nebula tries to open the door and she can't, she's struggling to figure it out. She pushes the button, and then Star-Lord's like, open the effing door, and that's the first, I think, F-bomb in the MCU, and that's probably all going to change once Deadpool 3 comes out, and this is kind of weird to say that right now when that movie comes out, I think tomorrow or something, but anyway, that scene was funny, but once they do get to the place, they do have to talk with him, and the High Evolutionary doesn't really reveal his plan, but he does portray Star-Lord, Groot, but I think Nebula and they are ambushed by their goons, and we do get some cool looking goons. We see like this pig looking guy who with like mechanism arms, and this other guy, I think like a walrus or something. But we get this cool scene where like Star-Lord jumps out with the dude, and like the dude's begging for Star-Lord not to kill him, and he's like, "Oh, I ain't gonna kill us. I'm killing you." And then like Groot comes down gliding, and then he grabs Star-Lord at the last second as the place is collapsing, and like I think Star-Lord actually kills the man, and he grabs this little thing in his head that will save Rocket. But yeah, I was surprised they killed him, even though the ship later, when they're ambushed, Gamora tries to take control, but she ends up crashing the ship a little, causing damage. And I think Drax and Mantis and Nebula do all get separated, and they end up exploring the High Evolutionary, where they discover that they're keeping kids as slaves. And yeah, it's really dark. And this movie is really dark, but it has a lot of heart to it, which is what I really like about this movie. But we do see what led Rocket to escape the High Evolutionary, where he actually built a key card to escape. And he tried to let Lylla out and his other friends, but we get this brutal scene where it turns out Lylla gets shot by the High Evolutionary as they hug, and it causes Rocket to scream and scratch the High Evolutionary, and it turns out he also killed his other friends. It's very dark stuff. I felt so bad for Rocket, and it just made me go, and Rocket ends up like shooting the guards, and he ends up actually barely making out alive, and I think that's the last flashback scene of Rocket. And yeah, it's really tough to watch, seeing animals die like that, so cuddly, so nice. And Lylla was such a nice, she was so inspirational towards Rocket, and to see her die like that, it's tragic. It makes Rocket such a more compelling character, since he was always this rowdy, like kind of selfish. He's just in it for himself. But it shows that he does have a soft spot. So yeah, that's a dark origin for Rocket, but I think things do take a turn when the Star-Lord does make it back to the ship as it crash land, as Gamora was ambushed. But I think Star-Lord has only a few seconds left to save Rocket. And Rocket ends up, I think, in the afterlife. And he is breaking down, crying. He hugs Layla as he's in some heaven. But I think Rocket does die. But Gamora tells Peter to let it go. But he's like, I'm not letting go of my friend. And he actually helps restart his heart through, I think, some kind of device. And then, by miracle, Rocket is back alive and well, and he survived from his kill switch. But the rest of the movie is where the Guardians have to come together to, I think they have to rescue Mantis and Drax and take a final stance at the High Evolutionary. And he does call Peter. And yeah, he says the High Evolutionary also is maniacal. Like, he'll, like, be, when something pisses him off, like, he'll scream like crazy. And, like, he was having an angry phone call with Peter, and that scene was funny. And then, like, Peter comes up with the biggest insult for the man, and then, like, he hangs up, and Peter's like, he hung up on me. But I think what happens next is Rocket gets suited up as he decided that he is ready to, since he's not gonna back down, as he's going to ready to stop the High Evolutionary from his misdeeds. But I think Drax and Mantis and Nebula, meanwhile, they get into a little scuffle as Nebula was trying to be mean to the kids. Like, she was screaming at them, and then she was also insulting Drax by calling him dumb. And then Mantis, I do love this scene. This is easily the best scene with Mantis. And the next one is at the later end of the movie. But Mantis says, like, how Drax may be dumb, but he is the heart of the group and makes us laugh. And Nebula saying how he's incapable. But, yeah, Mantis does stand up for Drax, even though Drax ain't really liking it too much. But, I think they do end up freeing the kids. And it's their next move they're gonna make. And I think later in the movie, Nebula does say sorry to Drax, as she does admit that he is capable of things other than being the strong man. But I think what happens later, when they're trying to escape, they end up running into, like, these giant squid-like creatures, and they look great with the VX, even though, yeah, Marvel VX, it's a long story. But they end up attacking the group, but Mantis figures out, like, that they're actually scared. And it turns out they're on the good side. And I think they use the squids to take down the ship. And I think the Guardians do all reunite. But it leads to, like, a final battle with the High Evolutionary and his goons. And I think the goons also go to where Kraglin is. And I forgot to mention him. He sort of has a little arc in this movie. He's not in the movie too much. But he's still trying to learn how to use Yondu's arrow. And he also called Cosmo. I forgot to mention Cosmo. But Cosmo's in this movie, and she talks. And like, he calls her a bad dog. But once the High Evolutionary Army takes over, they all come together, and they get into a final battle. And Kraglin finally does master Yondu's arrow, and he is able to use it. And he even sees, like, a little vision of Yondu. So yeah, it was nice to see a little reference and callback to Yondu, since, yeah, we know, unfortunately, in Guardians 2, Yondu dies. But yeah, it was nice seeing Michael Rooker again. But yeah, the Guardians are first, when they do come together, they fought that they shouldn't do this, but, like, I do like the line where Rocket says, I'm tired of running. And so they come together, and they got a plan to take the High Evolutionary down. And his goons are actually seeing what he truly is, as they try to plot their next move. But, like, they actually betray him, and they try to shoot him, but we thought they were gonna win, but we know they weren't. And High Evolutionary actually kills all of them, and yeah, it was brutal. But they do. I think what he does next, as the Guardians go to their next move, as they're destroying his command ship. I think the squid creatures and the Guardians come when I think Rocket comes alone, as he's ready to free all the animals. They end up freeing all the kids, and they end up actually freeing Adam Warlock, who has come back. And I do like the line where, like, Groot decides to give Adam Warlock a second chance. And he's like, "Well, why are you guys helping me? I tried to kill you guys." And then they tell him, it's never too late to have a second chance. I'm kind of skipping a bit with some scenes in this movie, but yeah, there's a lot to talk about in this movie. But what happens next is they do have a final showdown. Rocket decides that he's going to save all the animals still hidden in the cages where he was all those years ago. And I think they do find them. And Rocket ends up getting a nice scene of all the baby raccoons. He holds them like a fodder. And he's ambushed by the High Evolutionary. And he calls him like an abomination. But I do love the scene where Rocket grasps to the ground and says, "The name's Rocket. Rocket's raccoon." And he knows he's a raccoon now because it says on his label for his species, it says raccoon. So I guess he's a raccoon alien. And also, when he was in that he was almost in heaven earlier in the movie, Lila does call him a beautiful raccoon. And Rocket's like, "I'm not a raccoon." But Rocket does take down the High Evolutionary, and they all take him down. I just love that scene. Like, Star-Lord shoots him, Drax bashes him, Groot grabs him with his tentacles. Yeah, Mantis takes him down, and I think Nebula as well. And Gamora, like, stabs him, and then he collapses, and he's just like, "I just wanted to make the world perfect." And then Rocket's like, "No, you just wanted to make it because you didn't like how things were." And we get this brutal scene where Gamora takes the face off the High Evolutionary, and yeah, it's pretty gross. But the team all decides they must escape, and they all do except Star-Lord. And I don't know if this is a nitpick, but Star-Lord, they have this random moment where Star-Lord almost dies when he tries to grab his music player because he dropped it while they were trying to escape. But they end up escaping with all the animals once they freed them. I do like the scene where all the animals come out and they aboard the ship, but they all get on board except Peter, who's drifting in space, all frozen. And I thought Star-Lord was going to die because people were speculating someone was going to die in this movie. Well, technically Rocket, but he gets brought back. But Star-Lord is saved by miracle Adam Warlock. So he does redeem himself. And he saves Star-Lord. And then Star-Lord's like, "Was that cool?" And the galaxy is saved. And I do like the line where Rocket says, "I ain't gonna kill the High Evolutionary because I'm a guardian of the galaxy." And so the day is saved, the galaxy is saved once again, but things take a turn as the Guardians have officially decided to retire. How does this make me feel? I feel this makes perfect sense since this is probably their most emotional journey. As the Guardians, even though the Guardians do fight a lot, they're still a family. But they still feel they have to go on their own and learn who each other are. And Peter decides he wants to step down as the leader of the group because he feels he's been running his whole life. And we do get this scene earlier in the movie where, like, Mantis asks about his grandfather, as I think Gamora did find like a picture of Peter, and like it. Yeah, she does leave to stay with the Ravengers, and she's like saying, "I may not be your Gamora, but I think Peter actually says like, I may not, you may not be our Gamora, but we still love you." But that was a nice scene. But Peter decides he's gonna go back to his grandfather, and I forgot, I kind of shifted a bit, but like, Mantis brings up Peter's grandfather, and Peter's like, "No, he's probably dead. He was 50 the last time I saw him," and Peter doesn't know that you can live past 50. But yeah, that was an interesting line. But Mantis decides she's gonna leave the team too because she wants to figure herself out. And Drax is like, "I'll go with you," and she's like, "No, Drax, I'm on my own." And so Nebula and Drax decide they're gonna stay on Nowhere to help the kids that they rescued, the slaves from the High Evolutionary. But Rocket gets promoted as team leader of Guardians of the Galaxy. So I've always had this theory of Rocket starting his own Guardians of the Galaxy since the Guardians were snapped away and Gamora died in Infinity War. But yeah, we knew they were all going to come back. Even Gamora, even though she was arrested through time travel. But I thought Rocket was going to start his own team, but it turns out he does as new members join the team in the later end credits. And the movie ends with our characters dancing to this one song, and it's like a big happy ending. Star-Lord it turns out that his grandpa still alive, and we saw him all the way back in Guardians 1 in the first scene of the opening, and he is super pleased to see and happy to see Peter alive but older. But the movie ends as we also got a post-credit scene of Rocket. He's got his own team with Adam Warlock, one of the slave girls, I forget her name. She joins the team as I think she has like certain powers, I'm pretty sure. I may be wrong, but Cosmo joins the team, Kraglin, Rocket, and still the team leader, and a much older Groot as they play "Come Get Your Love," a classic Guardians of the Galaxy song, and that's the movie. And we also get a scene with Star-Lord eating cereal, and says the legendary Star-Lord will return. So that's Guardians of the Galaxy 3. I have been talking a lot in this review, but I really love this movie. It's easily a 10 out of 10 for me. I think my only issue was probably just nitpicks. I wish like the soundtrack, I thought it could have been better, since I felt the songs were so much more iconic in the first two movies. I just didn't feel like the soundtrack was all there in this movie. It's a weird nitpick, but I also didn't understand why Star-Lord didn't have his helmet in this movie. It's weird to point out these things, but overall, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and I love this franchise. This movie was like a perfect finale to the Guardians world. But that's it for this review. I think I've talked enough about this movie, but I got to say what I wanted to say. The cast is great. The effects look great. The jokes are really good. The story was amazing. Good villain. And it's revealed that the High Evolutionary was alive. Yeah, in a deleted scene. But yeah. And this movie's also a big love letter for animal rights, as this movie supports animals and their rights, and they don't deserve to be treated how they were treated in this movie, and shows that we do care about animals. So yeah, so that's Guardians 3, my last movie review of 2023 from the movies I saw is Spider-Verse. Can't wait to talk about that. So with that being said, thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.